Good evening and welcome to the March 17th, 2022 meeting of the Grafton Mass Disability Commission. I'm Roger Trahan, Chair of the Commission. I call this meeting to order. As a preliminary matter, please permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Christy Proctor. Christy. All right. Hold on one moment. If you could just bear with me before I do this, I'm just getting I'm needing to send the link to Daryl.
Roger, I just sent it to her.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yep.
All right. All right. And I'm not seeing Christy, who would be taking our minutes. All right. Bob Berger.
Bob Berger here.
Catherine Dorr.
Here.
Here. Laura Deneen.
Laura Deneen here.
Rob Paulsonelli.
Rob Paulsonelli is here.
Okay. And Christy, are you back? Hi, Christy.
Hi, I'm having a ton of computer problems. My computer just is reconnecting and starting. So
Okay.
let's see if I can show up.
Recording
in progress. Okay, so what I will do is I'll continue the remote meeting access blurb, and then we'll get back to you filling that in on the minutes. Christy?
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm going to work off my phone tonight and just
Okay.
take it on my computer. I think that's the smartest thing.
Okay. And
Thank you.
anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. From the Unitarian Universalist Society of Grafton and Upton, Ted Beauchamp.
Yes, I'm here.
And Suzanne Mass.
I'm here, Suzanne Moss here.
Oh, Suzanne Moss, okay. An introduction to remote meeting. This open meeting of Grafton's Disability Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, and subsequent extension of June 16, 2021, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted to the town's website at www.grafton-ma.gov, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. I'm going to pause here in the introduction because I overlooked putting closed captioning on. And that's auto transcription, correct? No.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you just did it. That's why my hand was raised.
Okay, great. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, Grafton's Disability Commission is convening by video conference via Zoom, as reflected on our agenda, which is posted on our commission's webpage on the town website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda and meeting packet unless I note otherwise. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda, but before doing so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold your name until called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself We never do this. We just kind of politely interject. But I have to read it. For items of public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. The chair will first read public comments, questions received in advance of the meeting, followed by real-time board and/or applicant responses. There were none. Oh, there you are, Ted. Hello. Public comments during the meeting will be conducted through the chat feature in Zoom. And lastly, the chair will read real-time comments / questions typed by computer participants in the chat feature, followed by real-time board / applicant responses. And finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. So, Christy, I believe that I had opened the meeting at 6:34 p.m. If you could log that.
Got it.
And then everyone is present and Ted Beauchamp, that's Beauchamp. No, Ted Beauvais. Did I say Beauchamp?
Beauvais.
I'm sorry.
No,
You know what?
it's Beauvais.
Oh my God. You know what? I'll tell you. Slip. My dad has a close friend, Beauchamp, who he's always talking about, like every night. And so I'm sorry. Beauvais, Ted Beauvais, and Suzanne Maas, Maas. So
Can I interrupt really quickly, Roger? I think Daryl might be in the room. I think she needs to be promoted. I think she's here. If you could just check, that would be great. Sorry for the interruption.
Daryl, are you there?
I'm here. I just can't see anyone.
Oh, I'm trying to. It says Daryl will be rejoining the webinar as a panelist. Daryl Reining, where are you? Are
I'm
you
right.
there?
Yeah,
there you are.
finally.
All right. So I'll tell you, it takes so long for us to get off the ground, All right. So what I will be doing here, if you could bear with me, announcements. We'll roll through these. Just a reminder for the third straight meeting, our annual conflict of interest in open meeting law training. The deadline is April 9th. I think that's a Saturday. I'm not sure. And I meant to put 2022, not 2021. So let's get ourselves in gear, and I'll be the first to say I haven't done it yet. Second, the Mass Office on Disability has a work experience program going on. I will concede that I was remiss in reading all the details, but it is in conjunction with having people be paired with various state agencies. So if someone would Google Mass Office on Disability, it's reasonably prominent. Catherine, please.
I literally have it pulled up in another tab. So,
Oh, good. Okay. Do you want to give us a rundown?
the deadline for host agencies is April 1st, and the deadline for participant applications is April 15th. It'll be taking place on from June 13th to 16th this year, and basically they'll be meeting like with representatives from the host agencies. It's all like Commonwealth agencies and stuff. And it's supposed to be, it could be either virtual or in person. And it's just like a work experience thing. So you can, see what these different jobs entail, and also to like build references and skills. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I had also shared that. I want to thank Matt Hoffman, select board members, for having, he kind of tagged me on Facebook, and then I forwarded it to my own page. And so it's kind of out there in the social media world as well. And the WooSox, the WooSox having Deaf and Hard of Hearing Night on Friday, April 29th. And I guess the more prominent activities include various folks who will be signing that will be on the Jumbotron. And I don't know what the content is, but I would think, I didn't read specifically that this is the case, but I would think that that would not just be the extent of it. They're advertising this far and wide. So they're doing their work to be inclusive. And the all-encompassing any other announcements. Does anyone else have any announcements? I know we just, did the Paralympics finish? Did
Mhm.
anyone watch? I watched some hockey. I watched some other sporting events. Did anyone tune in?
I watched some sledge hockey. Yeah,
That's wild.
it's impressive.
It is impressive. And we have a good team. The USA has a good team.
So,
All right. Yes, Daryl.
Catherine, quick question. If you know, because I was reading, I got that Mass Office on Disability Work Experience Program.
Yeah,
And when I was reading it, it said that you have to have minimum education qualifications, but I cannot find anywhere where it says what the minimum is.
on the
know?
application itself, I think it is high school diploma or GED,
Okay.
and then they'll match you commensurate with your education. So, like for myself, I have a master's degree. They would match me with something commensurate with your experience. So,
All right. I was just curious. I poked all around that looking for that.
I looked at the actual application because I'm considering applying. So,
And one of the things too, just for all of us in the general public, Mass Office on Disability is an amazing website. And so I need to do my due diligence in regularly perusing through everything. They have regular updates. It isn't all like stale information. So they do a decent job at putting things forward, including some of these trainings, which I would like to attend. So anyone have any other announcements? All right, moving on, number 2, external correspondence. I did not have any external correspondence come forward, so we always put that as a placeholder. Meeting minutes for February 17th. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes of February 17th as drafted?
So moved.
All right,
Prepel.
all right, Rob, do I have a second? All right,
Second.
Darryl. So Daryl beat Catherine to the second. Catherine, you're kind of slipping there. All right, so motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
I can pull them up if you want me to.
You know what's fun? They were perfect. I didn't have any comments. Anyone else have any comments? Because I'm usually kind of like, I'm the spelling and grammar geek, so.
Come on, let's get some takers, Catherine.
So, all right, motion made and seconded, no discussion. All right, hearing none. All those in favor by roll call, Daryl Reining,
Aye.
Christy Proctor,
Hi.
Bob Berger,
Aye.
Catherine Dorr,
aye.
Laura Deneen,
Laura Deneen, aye.
Rob Paulsonelli,
Aye.
Trahan, I declare the motion carried unanimously, 7-0. Okay, moving on. Welcome, CPA/CPC funding request for the accessibility project for the Unitarian Universalist Society of Grafton and Upton. So Ted Beauvais, President, and Suzanne Moss, Development and Grants Coordinator, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm actually using my telephone for audio. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get through on the video, so I'm just going to stick with that. And Suzanne, you just want to say hi, introduce yourself?
I did say hi. I had a chance to talk a little bit as I was trying to get on, but I'm very pleased to meet all of you and to be invited tonight. I'm a member of the Unitarian Universalist Society of Grafton and Upton, and have a history of running a foundation and with a theme of supporting people with disabilities. So this is dear to my heart and very glad. I've never been at a town disability commission meeting, so this is great.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. And I'll say that I was particularly impressed and pleasantly surprised at how much planning and work has already been done. I know that a lot of the media and discussions have centered around the Grafton Common, the Grafton Library, one Grafton
Mhm.
Common and such versus, is it 3 Grafton Common is the address?
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Correct.
And that there have been various studies done and that there's a very detailed phased approach. And it's my understanding that this phase 1 is 18,000, but the request for community preservation funds is for 15,000.
Right, and actually, our phase 1, as Mr. Berger knows, is under contract with a building permit and waiting for the good weather, which seems to be arriving, to actually install new sidewalks at less than 5% grade coming into the building. As you're facing the building, the left entrance will be accessible by new sidewalk arrangements with a landing, with a push plate to actuate the door to open, and then you're inside. So that's our phase 1, and we're hopeful that that will be actually built and done reasonably soon in the next few months. This next phase that we're applying for has to do with once you're inside the building, how do you get to the second floor? It's, as you're familiar with old buildings in general, and this one in particular, it's a matter of climbing stairs. So we need to have a way to get people up to the main meeting hall sanctuary on the second floor. And in order to do that, we're contemplating installing a vertical wheelchair lift. And that would require, and what we're asking for in this grant, is to do the designing, engineering, specifications, getting everything all ready to go for going out to bid and for the contractor to be able to get a building permit to do the work. It involves taking a look at the structure. Being an old building, you have to make sure that there's support or we add support if needed in the basement. And then this lift will go from the first floor to the second floor. And so our request includes $3,000 of our money from our funds and a $15,000 grant request. Everything was spent or will be spending prior to that for this first phase, the outdoor part. That $38,000 is money that we have been able to raise over the last several years. So we have self-funded up to now. We're now coming in for a grant. And if we succeed in getting this grant and get the work done, we would contemplate coming back for an additional grant, both from the town of Grafton, CPC, and from other sources to actually build the shaftway and install the lift so that it's there and functioning.
So, Mr. Berger, do you have any input regarding everything being on track and such to move forward regarding their timeframe?
Well, the first thing they have to do is apply for a variance through MAAB. Because if you're not putting in an elevator, then it definitely needs a variance. So I would start pursuing that immediately.
Okay. All right, and MAAB is a Mass Architectural Access Board.
That's correct.
And yep, and so MAAB variance needed for, so is it like LULA, limited use, limited access? Is that what we're referring to this as?
That we are.
Okay. And so as a disability commission, and I know Mr. Berger with you, as the select board rep on this commission, I would gather that the Universalist Society may not be as familiar with these matters and that we could possibly assist them through this process. Is that something?
Well, you're going down a slippery slope. So,
Okay.
because we don't want to do that. And Ted, so the phone number for the board is 617-727-0660. You want to ask for William, he'll probably be the one picking up the phone.
So William Joyce?
Yes. The project that you're talking about is going to be under controlled construction. So you're going to have an architect and most likely a structural engineer on this project. I would start engaging some conversation with the architect because they're the ones that are going to guide you through the variance process. Because the more information you give them, it just makes it easier on your part. And sometimes you don't even have to go into Boston. You just have your architect mail off and apply for the packet. And then they have their meetings once a month. And they usually just approve something like that. And if they don't approve it, then they're going to call you in and ask you, explain why you can't put an elevator in.
So because this is part of the building code, the architect should absolutely be familiar with this process being, at least in their own experience, sort of an easy peasy administrative process as far as, getting this into MAAB. Is that correct?
If you pick the right architect, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So I'm wondering, okay, so similar to other grants and CPA funding that we have endorsed to town meeting, and this actually technically isn't a grant, it's a warrant article that will go in front of town meeting. And as I had mentioned to Mr. Beauvais, that Dawn Anderson, she is our town moderator, and that as not being a resident of Grafton, you would seek her permission ahead of time to be recognized on town meeting floor to speak to this, unless you had another person. Suzanne, are you a Grafton resident?
No, I am not. I live in Whitensville.
Okay, so in this instance, then either a Grafton resident or someone, you'd need permission from the moderator to speak.
Our minister is, the pastor, Reverend Daniel
All right.
Gregoire.
And I think that ideally would be the people most knowledgeable about this process to be able to potentially answer questions from the public.
Okay.
On town meeting floor. So it would be an easy peasy process. I can get you Ms. Anderson's contact information that you don't want to surprise her, that day and show up. It's something that you would be asked to sit in a different area from the voters, to speak to this. That's all.
Okay.
And so I guess I'm wondering, I had not, in the past, I have sometimes in the meeting packet, drafted potential motions, and I didn't do it this time because I really wasn't sure, exactly how to word this and whether it would be, whether we would avoid conditional language on variances. I don't want to get hyper technical or sidetrack our recommendation if that's the way we proceed. I will say that even the finance committee, Daryl, speak. You're muted.
Reading what they're asking for. It sounds like they're asking to fund an architect to plan this, right? That's what you're asking for.
Actually, it's actually the design and engineering and specifications work. We have had an architect previously, Mr. Amaro, who suggested that this might be a suitable location. We've had some look at it, but we now need to get into the details.
All right. So the motion would need to be what the work is, and then what the communication would be from authorizing me as chair to draft a letter. Wait a minute, I have someone's on Q&A as well. Oh, all right. Now that was your earlier question. What were you saying, Daryl? I'm sorry.
I was just saying, I don't think we really need to use the word variance because they're just asking for the initial funds which that's, the money is going to be the whole plan.
Right.
So they don't even know. And they're, as Bob Berger said, that their architect or whoever they hire to do this is the one that's going to be handling the fine details. So these guys are just asking to fund it.
All right. So would it be safe to say that a motion would basically be limited to
That we
voting,
support it.
that we support the society's requests for CPA funds for design, engineering, and specification work toward improving accessibility at 3 Grafton Common, and then naming, that it's a society?
Yep, I think that's general.
Yeah, I agree as well. Daryl. I agree that works.
Mhm.
All right, so, that is commission. All right.
So moved.
All right, so let me ask you this, I don't know how
Second.
unkosher, or, well, hold on a second. Wait, I don't know how kosher or unkosher it is. Typically, it's atypical for the chair to make a motion, but I've done that before. So I move that the Disability Commission vote to support $15,000 in CPA funds for design, engineering, and specification work
Yeah, to support the request.
to support the request of $15,000 in CPA funds for design, engineering, and specification work toward improving accessibility at 3 Grafton Common, and then naming the organization as well.
Yeah.
And then I guess further for the chair to draft a letter to the society and CC whom?
The town, the CPA.
And do we CC the town administrator too, or just the CPA?
And the town.
Or
admin-
CPC, okay.
Yeah, CPC, town administrator, universal
All right,
church.
So CPC, so copying the Community Preservation Committee, the town administrator, and I always CC the Disability Commission on it too, and then mail it to everyone. So drafting the letter of support to the society to Mr. Beauvais' attention?
Yes, that'd be fine.
Okay. And copying Community Preservation Committee, Town Administrator, and Disability Commission. Anyone else? I don't think anyone else needs to be CC'd on that, right?
I don't think so.
Okay. And all right, then, any further discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor by roll call. Daryl Reining,
Aye.
Christy Proctor.
She's
I can't
muted.
hear you.
She's muted.
There
There
we
you go.
go.
Seconded this. I
Oh.
missed that. Like
I
3
seconded
people.
it.
All
Thank
right,
you,
so
Bob.
I
Okay.
guess I made the motion. all
Okay,
right?
and now I say
Oh,
aye.
Roger, you did not make the motion.
No, who made the motion?
I have you down, Roger, but
No.
it's really technically Daryl.
That's
All right,
right.
so-
Daryl made the
Because
motion.
Daryl started and then you hopped in.
All right, good. That's perfect. That's
You
perfect. I
were
hate
the
making motions as the
discussion.
chair.
You were the discussion, Roger.
What was that?
You were the discussion.
I was a discussion.
Sorry about the tunnel there, the rabbit hole here, but okay, so Daryl
Yeah.
made the motion.
Okay, yeah,
Thank you.
all right. And all right, so Bob Berger seconded it. All right, so Daryl was in favor. Christy Proctor.
Aye.
Bob Berger,
Bob Berger, aye.
Catherine Dorr,
Aye.
Laura Denine,
Laura Denine, aye.
Rob Pelsinelli.
Rob Paulselli, aye.
All right, Trahan, I declare the motion carried 7-0. Congrats, we're behind this.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much,
thank you,
everyone.
be-
Yeah,
It's
thank
very
you.
nice to
Appreciate
meet
it.
you and
Yeah.
thank you for your direction, Rob. That was
You're
helpful.
welcome. You're welcome.
All right.
We'll be in touch. Thank you much.
All
All right,
right.
thanks. Have a good evening.
Have a good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, I'll tell you, I was very impressed with the detail, that they gave as supporting documents at every aspect of what CPC is looking for. And I like how it ties all of these projects together in the Grafton Common area. It's that whole coordinated effort, picking up some momentum as far as some of these buildings that aren't necessarily town buildings, but that the town uses frequently for all sorts of good things. So I'm really psyched that we're supporting this. All right, so Disability Commission charge and revisions, item 5 on the agenda. So I had tuned in, I didn't speak, but Christy had spoken at Tuesday night's select board meeting, calling in, because what had happened is, and this is sort of like putting the cart before the horse, kind of, is that you'll notice in your packet that I added there was a proposal to the select board. It wasn't entirely clear who the proponent was for a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee that would include someone from Disability Commission. And so it kind of mirrored and duplicated some of our prior discussions. But as I understand it, the discussion kind of led toward a consensus by the select board that Evan Brassard will ask both the Mass Municipal Managers Association and the Mass Municipal HR Association whether they've done DEI, I guess, self-evaluations. Is that how you took it, Christy?
No, it's actually called an audit. It's a DEI audit.
Audit, okay.
I've gone through several iterations of these. These are very tricky.
Okay.
I don't relish what they're about to undergo.
Okay.
Who's DEI?
DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. And you usually find people who are specialists with diversity, but not inclusion. Or they're really looking at race and POC, people of color, but they're not looking at disability. We paid a lot at QCC to have a specialist come in. We had to wait. And then everyone was up in arms because all they really did was do a head count about who was what color at our school, which we could have done ourselves. Then they gave us a survey. And Sue Mailman, who some of you know, she was the head of the trustees, and she was in a Zoom with all of us. And people kind of said this was not what we were expecting. Where is the disability aspect of this? Where is the socioeconomic status of this? Why are you not including? I mean, it just, guys, it doesn't bring together people. It doesn't usually yield good information. It's very in the moment information, and it doesn't yield lasting change. And in the end, the report came out and people are just like, we already know this. So they paid a lot of money for nothing. So you have to be very careful about who you secure, your reasons for doing it, and what your scope of work is, because it can be a lot of, right now, because of the climate we're in, it can be a lot of dog and pony show.
And I'll mention that both Doreen DeFazio and Matt Often were the primary. It was a 4-member committee. Chairman Carlson was not there, and Ms. Roy was running the meeting. And it was mostly Doreen and Matt Often who provided, the greater part of the input. And I know that what Matt had mentioned is his back and forth and weighing whether or not when we combine the school having a diversity officer, there being a disability commission, as we're at least now known as, whether or not the remaining piece should be just more of a community organization, sort of similar to the online presence of Grafton Rise. Grafton Rise was mentioned, and whether or not they could get more accomplished in that way versus being a town committee. Is that how you took it, Christy? That discussion, they didn't land on anything, but that was the kind of gist of aside from Evan doing his piece, that was a consideration that went back and forth during the discussion, that should this be a town committee or not, aside from really the charge and the membership makeup being of significant discussion. What was your
It's
other
all
takeaway?
well-intentioned. It is all well-intentioned. They just haven't thought this through.
Who's
It's
the
going to take
proponent, though?
longer to think through. They have to slow down and they really have to slow down and look at what they're doing and all the ramifications, because there's a lot of red flags on this, and all they have to do is look at Worcester to avoid some of their pitfalls.
Mhm. All right. Yeah, Worcester has run into some issues. So any other takeaway on that piece? I didn't want to put this prominent, but it was kind of, it kind of got thrown in there and I didn't want to ignore it. And I didn't want to belabor the discussion after you spoke for me to pipe in and kind of, rehash that
So-
we were going to bring this into our discussion tonight. Daryl?
Christy, can you just explain again what happened on Tuesday?
Oh, yes. So they have this proposal for this commission. So it's going to be another commission with 9 members, including someone with a disability. And
No, or someone on disability commission, a rep
a
from
disability commission, excuse me, yes, with a select board representative. And then I believe Ms. Roy mentioned that there'd be one person from each jurisdiction. And my point was, I don't know if you really truly intend to have the work of this scope and magnitude in the hands of a commission, because to effect real lasting cultural change, you need to have people with authority and understanding and training for this type of work. So we'll see what happens. I also mentioned that, it's great that you want one person from each sector of the town, like each of the 4
5 precincts.
5 precincts. And I said, I hope you're talking about the demographic groups of the indigenous population here in Grafton, as well as we have a large deaf community here. I mean, and then later I thought, they're not even looking at DEI in terms of all the different types of race here. The differences of religious practices that are here. It's just a very narrowly defined. I mean, how far are they going to talk about diversity of age? I mean, they just don't have a lot of definitions, and it's very squishy and it's not well thought out yet.
What's that commission's job?
Yeah, that's my question. I'm confused
Oh,
as to
yeah,
what their
so Laura,
job is.
They were
It's in the-
talking
it's-
about that these
it's in the
people
meeting
would be
packet.
providing training. And I thought, just because you're a certain category doesn't mean you're the proficient person to be giving training on these things. I mean, it's,
What?
yeah, so for some of these things, you really need people with authority and with so I alluded to how Bob's on our commission, because he works for the town. He has the ability to look at complaints or ADA violations. He can do that. Who's going to listen to the Title IX complaints? Who's going to look to the harassment complaints based on race? I mean, is that what this group is really going to be doing? I mean, once you create this could really morph into something that's a liability and not, again, well-intentioned, but not well thought out yet. And I'm hoping it will be.
Christy, the other thing too is that it's actually the last 2 pages of the meeting packet of the draft that was in front of the select board on Tuesday. And the mission was, just without getting into the further details, the mission was to advise the town in developing recommendations that further the advancement of diversity, equity, inclusion in Grafton through promoting a diverse, inclusive, and safe environment and actively working towards racial and social equity. And then it included some of those DEI groups to include persons with disabilities. So they tabled that, and they're looking more into that whole DEI audit. Matt often had made the analogy how we had, as a commission, started with the ADA self-eval to first identify work and then work off that document, rather than just in a hodgepodge fashion come up with ideas where we thought needed to be addressed. So I at least wanted to mention that before getting into the gist of our continued discussion. I just didn't want to leave that out because we kind of tabled that broader scope. We talked about DEI and we kind of tabled it even though we're broadening some of the language to include accessibility, that we're not going to be encompassing the type of work that this very proposal encompasses. So
It seems like it overlaps.
it does in many respects.
And I mean, it's interesting because they should look and see what other towns are doing. Like, for instance, Shrewsbury has one just for the school committee. That's, the school department, that's her title.
Right.
That's a big enough job right there is, just for one section, and she works for the town. So I am wondering if what a commission would do.
Right, and that was my point too. I know it was in our packet and maybe we table this, but I still don't understand even after what I just heard and what's in the packet, exactly how it would all fit together and how it would work. So that was my point exactly, Daryl. So Roger, I don't know if you want to get into this or not, or.
No. I just wanted to acknowledge that I'm in agreement that there's duplication here. But I didn't want to ignore it because I knew it made the select board meeting packet and got discussion. And Christie weighed in. I chose not to, even though I was tuned in. And
Sure, I'm sorry, I'm free thinking. To ensure diversity in the workforce that can be recruited and hired, you're not going to have a commission do that. You need a person on the inside.
that's what Christie's point was.
That's what I said. I said, you cannot have a commission attract and retain and ensure onboarding for anyone. I mean, that's just, again, that the scope of this is a little unrealistic. So I asked.
You're right.
someone-
It seems like it's well-intentioned, but not thought out.
Right. And I asked, I think I asked Roger, and we don't know the answer, but we were just talking a little bit. Why doesn't the town hire a DEI person?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that was considered before this was brought forward. I don't know what the forethought was, as they started talking about this. Maybe that was an option and they nixed it. And now this is the iteration that's coming forward. I don't know. I'm very curious.
So it looked like a very rough draft. But I just wanted to get that discussion point out of the way that it's a public discussion now. Didn't want to ignore it. And so at the last minute, I threw that draft. It's the last 2 pages of our meeting packet for reference. So let's get to the meat of the continued discussion on our charge and how close we are to finalizing things for recommendation to the select board regarding our previous vote already, last meeting or the meeting before. The first recommendation was for the renaming to Accessibility Advisory Commission. Rob and Christie.
And Roger, will you please allow me to share so I can bring it up?
Yeah,
for
please.
our,
All right, hold on a second. Share
Thank you.
screen.
because that I know makes a difference when we're all looking at the same thing.
All right. I think everyone can share everything now.
Yeah.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So Christy, did you just happen to go to the select board meeting?
No, I avoid those things at all costs.
I texted Christy and Rob.
I'm like,
as to-
wow, Christy.
I texted each of you to both Christy and Rob as the subcommittee to whether either or both were available to weigh in on this if asked. And so I appreciate that Christy. Thank you, Rob. I know Rob was willing, but he was unavailable. And thank you, Christy, it was 9A on the agenda. It was deep. We didn't ask to be pushed up because there wasn't any guarantee that we would be asked for input, but it was deep into the agenda, right, Christy?
It was. And you know what? Once, guys, I wasn't thrilled with it. And then once I read it, I was like, oh boy, I'm in there. I'm there. Because when I saw it, I was like, oh, yeah, it was good.
Right.
Okay. So right now, this really wasn't discussed in depth at our February meeting, but everything is still here from our last two meetings. Nothing has been changed. And what we did agree on was that our name would be changed. And I don't know if I put it on here.
All right. It was on
No.
the very top. No.
I'll change it right now. So our new, if it's approved, would be the Accessibility Advisory Commission.
Yeah.
Let me change that right now. And I'll highlight it as new. Okay.
I mean, we need to get this into them before they go too deep in developing another board.
And then there's an election coming up. And so,
Okay, let's just double check what we decided on. In the green. So,
Can we just
Before-
go up to the top where you changed it? Did
Yeah.
ashore have two double lines because it's supposed to be inshore?
oh, thank you. I'm just going to click for the suggestions.
Yeah. Where to go?
I don't know if it comes, reassure, convince, satisfy, guarantee, certify, attest to. Let's go to ensure and see if that stops. Okay. Yep, and it takes it away, so that's good.
Yeah,
Okay.
because assure is to promise that something might happen. Ensure is to make sure it will happen. So
Okay, sorry to hijack, Christie. Go.
That's
go.
okay. No,
Thirty
I'd rather
seconds.
fix it now. Okay, I'm going to skip down to the next portion where we really need to now firm this up because we saved it with the corrections. If this is approved or we agree for the green and the other yellow sections that have the lines to them, I'll remove it and we can take one more look at it.
Yep, short, sweet and simple.
Okay, instead of live, should we say reside?
Yeah, unless they're homeless. That's
Right.
I
live.
mean, I think it means the same thing.
Yeah, okay, I'm not gonna go crazy then.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm erasing this.
Okay.
Okay. And I'll remove. Okay,
so at a high level, number one, on a regular basis, I like the idea that it's not identified, but we also don't want to lose track of things about how making sure that we don't go years and years and years without doing a survey. Doesn't have to be every single resident or every single household, but that we mail things to, but certainly be out there for people to weigh in on things. But how frequently? Do we just leave that open-ended and do our due diligence to just regularly do it?
I mean, that's a thought. How frequently? Every 3 years, every,
Yeah, like
Yeah.
how, I mean,
every 5 years.
as far as policy, even the charter talks about, bylaw review every 5 years, charter review every 10. And so if we're going to develop some sort of charge, do we want to leave that open-ended or not?
I think we should leave it open-ended. That's
I
my,
agree.
Okay.
If anything, could I suggest an at least every statement? Just as a safety net?
Mm,
I think, right, more is always fine, but at least every, and I don't know what that number is, but I feel like that at least puts a safety net in there so that we don't end up, because not for nothing, right? The current charge has conduct outreach. Anyone know when the last time we conducted outreach was?
Never.
well, it
So-
depends on what that means, right? So if we get a letter and then, we start investigating it, and that is conducting outreach. So it all depends on the definition, and it's not defined. So,
All right, 2 years ago, when someone was complaining about the parking spots, we did outreach.
Yeah, I guess,
yes,
yeah.
we did. Yes,
And
we
what
did.
does outreach even mean? In other words,
Right. right.
we don't want to box ourselves into everything, because outreach then could be, someone could say, well, is it through, are you doing a mailing to every household, or how are you posting this?
Every business, every, wow, good job, Unitarian Church, for being so on top of that. But
Right.
are the other churches in town? I don't know.
So I'm
Um,
looking for a number here. And I would suggest
I
that we
think-
go minute.
I think.
Yeah.
It's again, another slippery slope you're going down. Because our master plan has to be done every, let's say, 7 years. It's probably been 14 years since we've conducted a master plan. And then now, if we're gonna put every 5 years, every 7 years, how's that gonna be funded? And who's actually taking the survey? These are just thoughts I'm throwing out there.
mhm.
Before it was, if we have a problem, we're going to do an outreach to see what's going on out there. Right now, you're saying, you know what, let's just say every 7 years, we've got to survey the community and figure out what these issues are.
Mhm.
I don't know where we're going with this.
Well, I think part of that is because we're being kind of open-ended about it, right? So, Bob, to your point, even if we say 7 years to kind of align with what you just said, right? We can decide as a committee, or whomever's on the committee at that point in time, what survey means and how to work with the different subcommittees, et cetera, to get that out. It could be as simple as, we use our funds that we have and send a survey via mail to 100 residents. We can just, the way it's written is we can decide how we want to do it. So I think that, I don't think we're going down a slippery slope. I think that it's open-ended, because we can decide, or whomever's on the committee when it's going to happen can decide how they want to run the survey. It's
Yeah.
not defined.
That could be a whole year's worth of work.
For sure.
Mhm. It could.
All right.
So I
But that
guess
might
we
be,
wanna
that might be
be-
the one thing that the committee is concentrating on for that year for the most part, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
I don't know.
Do we want to be colloquial, like every several years, or?
Several. I love it.
Okay, Laura's saying no. Okay, just checking.
Officer, I've had a few beers.
Oh, yeah?
As often as is deemed necessary?
Yeah, there you go.
I kind of like that.
Yeah, ooh, Catherine, is
That or
Catherine?
7, that or 7, because if the
Mhm.
master plan,
You can run it with the master plan, yeah.
if the master plan is 7 years and Bob said we're supposed to do it every 7 years, then.
Hmm.
Yeah, I just don't know that number. 7 just comes up in my head.
Right.
It's a
I
good
say
one.
every 5 to 7. How about something like that? Like, let's leave it kind of that way.
We'll make it really ambiguous.
Or as deemed necessary. Yeah.
By the
But I'm wondering
commission.
though, I'm wondering though, with the age of not only social media, but websites and us having an email address. I can't imagine us not doing this at least every 5 to 7 years. So I'm hemming and hawing and maybe more in line with Laura by not, I think Laura, you didn't want to box us in, or,
No, I don't think we should be boxed in.
I mean, I'm wondering, some of these surveys could be very brief. They may be very limited in scope. And I don't want to make it sound like these are necessarily these big grand things that have to be tackled every so often. I think that survey the community on issues pertaining to access and inclusion.
We could pick a demographic and just look at that demographic for survey responses. We could isolate people and say for this neighborhood or for this age for preschool children, is the town inclusive? Of seniors, is the town inclusive? For our deaf population, I mean, there's so many different ways to define this. This does not mean we have to do a survey of the entire town of Grafton.
So do we, I mean, would everyone, I'm not gonna duke it out over it because we could get ourselves bogged down from a time constraint perspective, but how comfortable are people putting a period after the word inclusion without even mentioning how periodically survey the community on issues pertaining to access and inclusion? Then we decide at any given meeting when that is.
And Roger, just throw in as deemed necessary,
Yeah,
then put
all
the
right.
period in.
Is everyone on board with as deemed necessary?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Do I have anyone that is in disagreement?
No, as long as we're clear that the commission deems it necessary, not anybody else outside of it, right?
As the
Whatever.
commission, as the commission deems necessary.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm with you,
As
Laura,
this, yeah.
Yeah.
As the,
with a capital C.
Right? Yep.
yes.
Mhm.
All right. All right, so now we're going down to number 2. Let me ask you this, though. For the purposes of having headers and things like that, right now, when we've been doing a side-by-side comparison on this spreadsheet, it's sort of been a running narrative. Do we want to put headers on things as far as the charge? If you were to go back to the top, like, membership or, goals or whatever, that it's broken down by a handful of categories for easier tracking and readability. Does anyone have any input on that?
Sure, that's the way I write all my documents.
All right,
So first thing we have to do is get through this exercise. Once we're
Right.
through this exercise, then we should be doing an index, because what you're
All right.
describing is an index.
okay, I was at a loss. I was having a mental block.
Yeah, we'll help you out through that.
All right, thank you, sir. I've been candid all along. At the end of the day, after working on a computer, I am toast. It's just like,
I had a
Wow.
rough day today,
oh, I'm sorry.
rough day at the ranch.
Ugh.
It's been a week. It's been a week.
I've been on vacation this week.
Oh, wow.
That's nice.
Yeah, I'm remodeling my kid's bedroom. I
Oh,
gotta
good.
pull that permit. I know I gotta pull that permit.
We didn't hear that. And then
Or
tonight,
just don't tell anybody, Bob. It's okay.
I know, I work at night with a rubber hammer. Nobody can hear me.
yeah. And I have, after this meeting, I got to put together trash and recycling.
Not me.
No. All right, so
All right, so number 2. Yep,
all right.
I mean, does everyone else think so?
I like it. Does anyone think it should be scaled back or elaborated on? Is everyone on board?
I think so. I go back and forth between wanting to be very specific because that's just where my mindset is, right?
Right.
But I think for this, I think it works because we could go into what town officials, how do we foster equal out? Like we could go down that path and I don't think that's what this should be. So long story short, yes, I think it's good.
And this is how I kind of look at it. It's a kind of crude analogy, but you know, when we look at the town meeting warrant, it speaks in broad terms, and then on town meeting floor, there are motions to be made and potential amendments, and that's where the nitty gritty can happen. And so, yeah, as a commission, yeah, this is where we as a commission then put our heads together and get into the nitty gritty versus boxing ourselves in with the charge up front. We don't, I mean, there comes a point where you're looking at a committee charge and you'll be like, that's way too long. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you stop reading it, like you
Yeah.
just stop reading it. So agreed.
Yeah. There's some cities and towns that just go on and on and on. And they're like, okay.
So for number 3, can we just say instead of departments, boards, and agencies of the town of Grafton, can we just say town departments, boards, and agencies to ensure equal access?
Yep.
Just to remove some of the
Absolutely.
wordiness.
Yes.
Mhm. Yep.
Are residents or town residents? No, forget it. Sorry. For all residents and visitors.
Yep.
Okay.
So positive, well, employees can be, well, they're not technically visitors or necessarily residents.
Yeah, employees need to be in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Good call out, Roger. Good call out.
Thank you. Thank you. Because they're the ones that are actually in town every day, you know? Cool. Does the word many need to be in there? Is that redundant or not? Many and varied. To ensure varied perspectives are taken into consideration. Does both many and varied do they both need to be in there?
I say we take out many and.
Yeah, I agree with that. Is everyone on board with just putting the word varied in there and taking
Yeah.
out? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And then civic and community life, is that one and the same or not?
I don't know. I'd have to look up.
Civic and community.
I think of civic as being government, while community is the residential.
Okay.
So I would say that a lot of people reading this charge is going to have that same question. Like, what is the difference between that? So maybe we say impacting local government and community, right?
Okay.
If everybody's in agreement with that.
Mhm.
Yep.
So in community or community life? Do we get rid of the word life?
I think in community, comma, including compliance with relevant state and fed laws. Yeah.
Now, I've always, even though I'm a word nerd, I always get stuck on whether state and federal are either of those are capitalized. No?
So they would only be capital if we were defining them and we're not. So it's fine.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Same with the Catholic school. If we got things wrong, they hit us. So I'm kind of stuck on, I don't know, it's just, I'm kind of stuck on making sure things are right? Or else
Someone has to be. I mean, we
Right.
always need people doing that. So I think it's a good thing.
yeah, so. All right. Advocate for and promote an inclusive community. Is that one and the same, or is that different?
Well, let's go back to where we also have the welcoming community back here, just to make sure, because it's actually up here that the town is accessible, inclusive, fostering equal access, and there we have welcoming environments. This is advocating for and promoting an inclusive community.
So to me, that kind of, and I could be reading it wrong, but when I read that, to me, what I think about when I see advocate for, it's advocating for everything we've already listed up top, right? So it's one thing to say we're doing this, but it's another to say that not only we're doing it, we're going to try to advocate for it, meaning drive change, right? When I see advocate, I see driving change. But that's what I think about,
Yep, it's an action.
right?
This is it, Laura.
Mhm.
So this is okay to stay in as is.
Number 5, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm taking this away. Sorry, every time I try to take something away, it goes up. I apologize if anyone's getting dizzy. Okay. And the last piece,
Encourage and value communication with community members regarding barrier removal and disability awareness by conducting outreach activities, collaborating with community partners and other activities as deemed appropriate or deemed necessary. Appropriate or necessary?
Appropriate.
Okay.
You could have both, but certainly appropriate should be one of them. I mean, appropriate, yeah, you could have both, but I think appropriate's fine.
Necessary gives too much leeway to say no,
Right.
True.
in my experience. It wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
okay, so this has been now pretty much, I'm just comparing length and so we have 6 areas, like we were saying, we will index everything.
We gotta take the numbers out because no one. will
Numbers out
look
for
at them.
sure. And then is it worth going back and realigning these with the
Do you
current
mean the
charge?
numbers here at the end or the
Yes.
numbers
Yeah.
here?
The numbers at the end.
Oh, yes, okay. That's what I want to make sure. Thank you.
I mean, that was for us to tick and tie, right?
Right.
Right. Okay. That was our chicken scratch.
And eventually, aside from indexing, we're going to have to, or not have to, but I think it would be very beneficial to have some type of preamble which gives the heads up or puts the select board on notice, what we're doing, when we met, that we've been regularly speaking about this and discussing this and voting on these things. And here's why we're making the changes compared to what existed before or what currently exists, and to why we're making the changes at a high level. And then and then have the commission, as part of its vote, that both Rob and Christie would present this as a subcommittee in front of the select board.
Yeah. And no, I mean, I was gonna say we should probably have before and after, but maybe not, because I don't want the select board to get down into the weeds and,
Yeah.
and they could easily decide to just change everything and we'd be stuck with it.
Well, here's what I'll say. I'm not sure where it originated from. When I had asked for the Disability Commission to be reconstituted because it had 0 membership, it was active in 2009, 2010, and 2011, then was inactive for like 8 years until 2019. And I think that notwithstanding the fact that the commission had a charge that was also on the town's website, I think that whoever was putting this on the agenda and putting the meeting packet together may not have been clear on that point and may have copied our current charge from another town. There was no discussion on why the select board made the changes or justified the changes that they made in amending the charge in the middle of 2019 before we first met in September of 19 as this group. So I can't imagine that, and it's not the same group of people. There's been turnover on the select board. So I don't think that anyone on the select board could say that this current charge is written in stone or was even deliberated. I think it was copied and pasted from another town without realizing that a charge already existed. So this is really the first time I think that anyone's really looking at the charge since like 2009, when the select board at that time put the commission together pursuant to a town meeting vote.
So Roger, are you saying that in summary, that we will write up or prepare a narrative to present to the select board to be included with the packet?
Yeah.
So that they have a
yeah.
written version of the histories and now the current.
I wouldn't necessarily get into the whole nuance of,
Okay.
my speculation that that's how our current charge came to be. I mean, we could certainly reference it. We have been referencing it, but we could simply acknowledge that the charge was amended without select board debate. It was in August or July 19. There's a meeting back then. It was amended, but without any discussion.
So right now, should we formally make a motion to accept this current charge to bring it forward? Or are
Provided
those
that,
two separate things?
provided that the, you're not talking about the document, you're talking about the preamble, because the document somewhere, oh yeah, I'm sorry. You made the change to include Accessibility Commission at the very top.
Right.
Accessibility Advisory Commission. All right. So,
Mhm.
so what is your motion then? Is
Well,
it Christie or?
We could possibly have 3. Do we fold them all into one? That we take this document as the charge with the name change, proposed name change to bring forward to the select board? Or do we make motions on these individually?
So
Like you're talking like a
I
division
think
of
we
the
need
question?
separate ones. So I move
Yeah.
that
Okay.
we accept the charge as amended this evening, March 17th, 2022, during our meeting. And that's it.
Second.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Bob Berger?
That's what I thought. Thank you, Bob. Just want to make sure.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor by roll call. Daryl,
Aye.
Christie,
Aye, aye.
Bob Berger,
Bob Burger, aye.
Catherine Dorr,
Aye.
Laura Denine,
Laura Denine, aye.
Rob Paulsenelli,
Paulson, aye.
Trahan, I declare the motion carried 7-0 unanimously. All right, so the second motion would be what? Daryl, do you want to, I can't hear you.
I think it would be drafting a introductory letter to bring to accompany the charge change, the updated charge to the select board, whatever their names are. Sorry.
All right, so who would draft that? Rob, would that be Rob and Christie?
I was just gonna say, I think it's us again, Rob.
I think so. It just, I think makes sense. And we'll obviously, happily we'll bring it back to everyone for review.
Okay,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm happy to proof it.
Awesome.
I love the whereases, et cetera, doing preambles. It's just
All
half
right.
the fun of it.
but so wait a minute, let me ask you this then, who will then do on the disability charge change or whatever, who's going to do the indexing? That's more just an administrative thing, or is that a separate vote? Or are we discussing that, or that seems to be just it's non-substantive, it's just, it's more of an indexing, so who would do that and when? And maybe I'm ahead of myself because there's a motion on the floor, so. So the motion is to draft a letter to the select board to accompany the updated change.
Charge change.
Charge change. And
Move that Rob and Christy Proctor as a subcommittee update, write a preamble letter introducing the charge change for the new accessibility
advisory commission.
advisory commission,
All right,
AAC.
all right. So any discussion on the motion? Christy, you all set with that wording?
I'll read it back when you're ready.
Sure.
Just one quick question. Have we already suggested the name change, or was that going to be a separate motion?
We voted on that last meeting.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
But
I have
related to
one
that,
more
I don't have a second for the draft letter.
Oh, I'll second.
Okay, thanks, Laura. I was
Oh.
waiting for Bob.
In discussion, I just want to thank Christy and Rob for their hard work pulling that apart and all the hours that you guys put into working that. So thank you. You guys.
Yeah,
did-
I mirrored that. If anything, in looking back at Tuesday's select board meeting, that's the input I could have given, because people tune into that because I think it'll eventually be public that you two have done a great work and a service to the community in really tweaking this wording. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Very welcome.
Just
Team
know
effort.
that Rob gets to go first. So the next time we go before the select board, it's your turn, Rob.
So the
I'm just
motion
gonna
is
go in the
made by,
background and, sign
that
every
was-
once in a while, peace,
so that was
Okay.
Daryl's motion and Laura's second.
Yes, so the motion is to draft an accompanying letter for the draft charge change to the select board for the new Accessibility Advisory Commission.
And then to bring back for review, because you're not asking the select board to do it now,
Okay,
right? In other words, we'll make one final vote at our next meeting.
okay.
Yep.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, Daryl,
Aye.
Christie,
Aye.
Bob Berger,
Bob Burger, aye.
Catherine Dorr,
Aye.
Laura Denine,
Laura Denine, aye.
Rob Paulsenelli,
Paulson, aye.
Roger Trahan, aye. Declare the motion carried 7-0. I'm just looking at my time. I know, Laura, you had mentioned a hard deadline. I know, Christy, you had mentioned some family stuff.
Nope, I'm done. I'm done. Came early. I'm done.
Done
No
with
problem.
your commitment or done with us?
No, I'm done. I'm done with my family. No, I'm only kidding. I don't have an 8 o'clock deadline. I'm good.
Oh, okay. All right. How about you, Laura?
I do, my middle's going back to school tomorrow, so
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, they're waiting on me.
Oh, boy.
So 8 o'clock's the deadline for me,
Okay,
unfortunately.
do we have any additional motions then?
Roger, you were talking about, and I don't know if you need a motion on it or not, who's going to take this charge and start indexing it?
Oh, God, yeah.
Do we need a motion to index it? And I don't know, like really, it's a.
No, but
honest-
you're really just asking somebody to volunteer to do it.
Right. So either by consensus or by vote, I think, yeah, thank you, Bob, for reminding me, getting me back on track here.
I can, if you want me to.
Oh, all
Tag,
right.
you're it.
Tag, you're it.
Just need one more filter. There we go.
That's the best one. Leave that one.
Yeah, there you go. All right, thank you. All right, so then project and general updates. Are we ready to move on to 6?
Sure.
All right. Eagle Trail behind Center Library. I think it was Daryl and Christy. No, Christy and Laura.
I was about to end the meeting.
I got an input regarding the brief blurb to Evan regarding asking to be put in front of the select board to discuss what the plans were and time frame and such for accessibility for that trail. And that was actually to select board chair Peter Carlson and CCing Evan, I think, or was it the other way around? Whatever. Peter Carlson had emailed me back, deferring me to Evan. So I don't know if they want to avoid the public discussion, but here are my thoughts. Okay, it's my understanding from Peter that that they were looking for us to sort of steer the ship without mentioning like AAB guidelines, the 521 CMR. They were looking for us to provide direction on what specifically accessibility meant regarding firm and stable surface and accessible route. I think Evan, as a former ADA coordinator, should know what that means, but they're looking for us to steer that ship. And I'm wondering, though, what people's thoughts are, aside from the accessible route, aside from parking and everything like that, the trail itself, knowing how sometimes whatever issues that need to be dealt with regarding wetlands and this and that, how defined, having been on trails in town, unless you maintain them, unless you throw more surface stuff or, stone dust with a surface underneath, I'm thinking anecdotally things probably tend to wash out and then degrade and then collapse. It's sort of like a New England road. I'm wondering, though, whether or not the better approach would be to look upon either this entire trail or maybe even a smaller loop with an AAB variance to be completely blacktop like Airport Park. Has anyone been to Airport Park regarding that accessibility piece and what that looks like? They put enough stone down and they raised everything up. I don't think that keeping things at ground level with an area that has various wetlands is going to hold up over time. And even if it is firm and stable at the beginning, the idea of paved woods isn't the greatest, but you know what though? If that eventually becomes a sort of almost like a learning lab as an extension to the library during various times, my guess and my opinion is that we're going to need a more permanent and hard surface that we see up at airport. They raised that thing. It looks like they raised the whole thing a foot because that was mushy. If you've ever been in an airport park with your kids' baseball games and you've sloshed just and come back with like completely wet feet. Anyone been at an airport before that? Before the sidewalk loop was put in?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Oh,
And
yeah.
how wet that was. I can't imagine that you could bring the current Eagle Trail to some standard over the long haul by just the whole an earthen surface that's packed with stone dust that may technically be considered firm and stable, but then 3 years later it washes out. Although blacktop isn't earthy, crunchy, touchy-feely as the project may have initially been geared toward, I think that type of hard surface would probably be accessible to the most people. And it's not only disability access. It's moms and dads with carriages, baby carriages, or people with
Walkers.
walkers that would afford
My
blacktop
dad was walker.
a blacktop surface.
Yeah.
So anyone's thoughts on paving the woods?
Well, let me just say that I have a problem with the discussion on word designing.
Okay.
So with that being said, I'm going to abstain from this conversation because, the position that I hold for the town, I can approve, in my position, I can approve or deny. I
Right.
cannot design. And I think if I start having any more conversation
Okay.
about what you're talking about,
Okay.
I might be stepping over that.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna duck out of the meeting. I'll come back when we have other business, if we do have other business.
Okay. Yeah, we have the Grafton Master Plan Disability Commission input, which I think we may table. I don't think we're prepared to dig into that. So, yeah, so Mr. Berger is back, has stepped back. Laura is gone as of what, 8?
Yep.
All right. So exit Laura and Bob. Just because the select board chair and town administrator may be, I don't know if they had a discussion between them, but just because they're saying, well, kicking back at us, I personally don't feel, I feel that trail is unfinished. Okay. But they're acting as if it is finished by having put signage up there. So anyone have any thoughts on that? In other words, I think it's a false narrative for us to sort of say, oh, this is phase 2. And we're somehow tasked with being the proponents of phase 2. I say this is one phase and it's not complete. Anyone have any thoughts?
My thought is we shouldn't be cleaning up someone else's mess.
Mhm.
Someone dropped the ball on this. It's not us to rescue. We should advocate for this to be accessible, but it's not our job to make it accessible.
Right. Yeah, we're an advisory committee. Rob, did you have a question?
Well, but it's a woodland trail, right? I mean, not to cover whatever. We have how many?
It's new space. In other words, it's work performed and it's new space. It was always open to the public. It just wasn't manicured. And so what
Right.
happened is what they did is they went beyond the curb cut and
Yeah.
put down a rock cage, okay, along a culvert. And that brings up I think there's an existing wetlands permit for the library project. So I think they ignored that. And they put down this rock cage, dumped it in this little divot, and then used that and buried the town. It was town employees did this with the DPW trucks. the town then covered it with wood chips. So like, forget for a second about accessibility, but like, just, it's just, it was like a hodgepodge, it's not a bridge. It doesn't have footings. It's a rock cage covered with wood chips that allows one to enable an able-bodied person to step up from the parking lot onto the curb and then walk across what was this divot. And then it's as flat can be. It's a trail that was all trees that the volunteers cut down trees and brush and things like that. So it's a very flat half-mile loop that begins and ends at that point at the end of the library parking lot.
And the contention is because it's been done recently, that's why
Yes.
there's this need for, yeah.
They created new space is what they did.
Yeah, I mean, it was done with the best of intentions by an Eagle
was,
Scout.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
they just didn't, nobody thought to say, oh, you got to take disabilities when you're creating a new town
Right.
accessible trail. They need to consider all people.
Right.
Um,
And I've had, discussions with Doreen about this, and she's stepping off select board quite soon. And she made the point, and it's an interesting one, is that this type of project, because it's a trail and it's town-owned land, it's unique because there's really no person, like who would have signed off on the work? Like,
Right.
I don't know if a building permit was even required for such a thing, because it's really just cutting down trees and throwing down wood chips, chipping those trees and throwing down wood chips to sort of maybe soak up some of the mush. But what happened is that they created this trail. Well, the land was always there, the land was always open to the public, but no one could have used it as a walking trail because it was one big obstacle. It was woodland. And so all these volunteers with the Eagle, this Eagle Scout project, she put together all these volunteers who did a great job at beginning the project, to the extent that it is now quite walkable for me, but no one else, that is, no one could ever get up. No, I mean, even if it were firm and stable surface, there's still no curb, that the curb cut is still there.
Right.
And so it's a barrier, and I think what happened is the family didn't realize this. The idea of accessibility is very nuanced when it comes to these type of things, is that a lack of a firm and stable surface is a barrier. A barrier doesn't have to be something that's physically above ground in the way, impeding you.
Right.
It could be a condition that prevents someone from navigating it. And the condition is that it's not firm and stable. In addition to the fact that there's a curb cut there.
Right.
So there's a couple of things in motion. And then I know when I've gone back and forth with emails to Evan, there still seems to be some wetland stuff, that there's certain parts of that land that would need to be worked or maybe reworked as far as the path and such. But I'm not that concerned about that piece, because there's a whole group in town, including a lot of townies, that were for just clear cutting that whole piece of land for a super park anyway. And I'll also add that I don't think the wetlands are a major issue for the following reason. We're looking at a building project at the DPW barn that is supposed to go that's supposed to encompass all the way back to the back lot line of Norcross Field on North Street. That's all wetland. And you're talking about putting entire buildings on what is understood as wetland. I can't imagine that putting a paved surface loop, if that's what the town decides to do, and can find funding for it, is going to be a major problem if we're putting down apartment buildings on an entire piece of land across the
First
street
wetlands, yeah.
that is equally wet. And so I know I'm diverting from the discussion at hand, but the big picture thing is I don't think the idea of it being wetlands is a legitimate barrier that should impede this project from moving forward. So they created new space.
What did you want us to say again, to ask? What were you asking? So do we want to recommend to pave the woods? And I agree with Christy and Rob, it's not our problem. They need to resolve it.
All right,
We just need to keep asking, this is not our project. How are you going to make it accessible?
right. Right. In other words, I think that I know someone could claim that we are, we're the advisors, but
not after the fact.
right.
They
Right.
never asked for us before.
Right.
So
There-
now all we're going to do after the fact is just complain,
Right.
in that it's going to be a complaint that we're going to add in terms of advocating that they make it accessible because it's inaccessible. So
Right.
it sounds like a complaint after the fact, but what we're doing is raising the concern. There's no curb cut. The surface is untenable for anyone who has a mobility impairment. I mean, we could say like 10 different things. There's, I mean, the width is not code. I mean, we could go on and on.
Right.
The signage is not in Braille. Do they want a laundry list?
Right.
So, I don't
I
know.
don't think, it's, and so I think that, the tap dance here is that folks on the, as a select board, they made an executive decision to allow a volunteer project to go forward. But I don't know what the paper trail is regarding the town or Evan or anyone else signing off on it. Someone had to, either through a phone call or a series of emails, had that.
Why does that matter?
No, what I'm saying is that the town affirmatively, knowing that during these discussions of lack of accessibility, affirmatively asked town employees to create a sign and erect that sign that suggests that that trail is complete. There's a sign that says, no, that says pedestrian, no vehicles, pedestrians only. Then the sign beneath it is one that, if anyone's gone up there, it speaks of the Eagle Trail and the Eagle Scout project, and it has a town logo on it. So someone paid for that sign. Someone directed a town employee to somehow either create or arrange for the creation of that sign and erected it. In other words, my point, Daryl, is, and I'm in agreement with you, but elaborating on it, that someone thumbed their nose at our whole discussion as a committee. And, to say.
I think the bigger red flag is that someone unilaterally is making decisions without following standard operating procedure
Right.
and spending money without really having, being accountable for what should be done. I think
Right.
someone acted in an unethical way.
It's just, so I agree with you, Daryl. I'll just kick it back to Evan and
So
say,
what do we have to do? I mean, do we need to write a formal letter?
no, we wait. Nudge, nudge, we wait for a complaint.
Do have a bum knee.
Flash mob. Well,
You're right there. I mean, I don't see where it's sort of like someone saying, you know what? Yeah, we're building this building. Let's just occupy it and we'll take care of the sprinklers later.
No, it's true. And And unfortunately, the sad thing is they didn't even think about it. They were so thrilled that an Eagle Scout wanted to help, which is wonderful. Eagle Scout
For sure.
person.
I think it's awesome. I think it's
Praise you
awesome.
for that, but they should have directed the Eagle Scout over to us to make sure that they
I know,
miss out on design,
right?
And actually, probably the Eagle Scout should have thought of that too, but I won't say.
No,
that.
but I talked to the family and the family had intimated that an Eagle Scout project can only be of such magnitude. And
Oh.
so I think in this situation, it would have been define the work as preliminary.
Oh,
or
so now
direct
it's
her- or-
turned over
or-
to the town.
Yeah, and then, or direct her and the family to maybe something
All
that's
right, well,
in compliance. And so the family had asked me outright, Roger, Disability Commission, what authority do they have to say no to this? I said, absolutely none. I said, we're an advisory committee. So that ended my involvement in that part of the discussion. And so I think even the family wasn't aware that of the nuance of a barrier can be a surface condition. It doesn't have to be something in the way, as we normally would know something to be in the way. So that's where my involvement ended. And so it was many months ago. So, I mean,
all right, so now it's not the Eagle Scouts problem, it's the town's problem.
yeah. In other words, the
Accessible
Eagle Scout, the
property.
Eagle Scout project is completed. She did an unbelievable job getting
Yeah.
volunteers together. Just an awesome young lady, awesome parents, who
Yep.
recognize that there's only it's limited in scope and number of hours. These Eagle Scouts are also students. And so there's only so many hours that can be committed to this. And it was a finite in scope. And she did exactly what she set out on doing. And, yeah, I just think it was premature to put the signage up. It suggests that this thing is complete, and it isn't. And the library can't use it in any way or advertise it in any ways as an extension of their programs. But if it were completely accessible, and whether you want to talk about paving the woods, if it were up to code and similar to airport, they could absolutely have programs. You could have interpretive trail there, and it wouldn't be limited to in any way, except maybe with snow and ice. But I guess we do nothing. I guess we wait for a complaint, and I'll just ask, maybe back off on insisting on being in front of the select board and just continue pushing the envelope as to with Evan, what are your thoughts? And I could throw at him that we had thought of a more robust plan. We didn't vote on it, but we had thought of and discussed of a more robust plan similar to the airport project. I would invite anyone who has every one of us among us five been up there?
I have not.
All right, I would, right, you know where it is, right?
Yeah. Yep.
All right, go up there. It's an amazing, amazing space, and you'll see how high up. I mean, they laid stone down, and it's raised and it's wide, and it's easily a quarter mile loop around the park.
Mhm.
And it's blacktop, and it's raised, and it's decently wide. So, and this piece is specifically unique in its flatness. I mean, you wouldn't pave undulating and rock formations, but this looked like it was former farmland that got overgrown with trees. So, yeah, all right. I'll just email Evan and Peter and just say, listen, it's not accessible. Let's have a discussion.
Do we have to make a motion for you to do that?
I don't know. I mean, No, maybe just by consensus. I'll just get back to Evan and Peter and say, you know what, the committee, talked about some alternatives and, leave it up to them. I mean, it's, in our opinion, it's unfinished. Maybe it does require a motion. I don't know. And they would want to kick it back to us saying, well, you're the advisory committee.
We can tell them what to do. I'd be happy to. I mean, we could give resources, I mean, we're not going to tell them exactly what to do, but like, here's how to get back on track with this to make it accessible. We can,
And I don't think it,
that's helpful. We can be helpful that way.
and that CPA project to do airport wasn't, the airport piece of it wasn't cost prohibitive.
Okay.
So what are you thinking?
I think emailing the town administrator and just bringing forward our concerns. I apologize. When you say Peter, I assume you're referring to Peter Carlson. I just
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
clarify.
And-
I
and-
think
and-
that's appropriate. Again, that's our role, advocacy, because we're advocating for accessibility.
So basically email Peter and Evan on
Mhm.
what timeframe to finish this project.
I mean, you just ask them what time frame, right?
Yeah. What are your thoughts? Open-ended, because I think that, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but I may have already done so, but honestly, when we look at these sort of temporary fixes, like the matting that is at Norcross has been completely consumed by grass. You wouldn't even know that those rubber mats were laid down. That does need to be all dug up. So I think these sort of temporary fixes regarding surfaces or stone dust and things that could wash away, I don't think they're a long-term fix. I think that the conditions at airport was a significant undertaking, but that's going to be there for a long time. So.
Christie, you got a motion?
Do you need a motion or? Do
No,
we
I
just
think this is just an ongoing discussion. I'll just
Yeah.
email Evan and Peter and ask that,
I
mention
just
that we
put-
just,
I just put Roger will email the town administrator and select board chair to bring forward our commission's concerns with the trails and accessibility features.
yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
the
so,
curb, the route, and the surface.
Okay.
Curb, parking, route, surface. So,
well, there's not handicap parking over there either.
no, there isn't, because handicap parking would have to necessarily be contiguous with an accessible route.
There's no braille signage.
No,
And if you want to get really technical, there's no refuse bags for surface animals.
right, that's true.
No, I mean, I
you're
really
right,
can go to
right.
town with a list, because these are all the things that people don't think about that, are just so important for other people. And
Right.
I mean, are there benches every once in a while? Because some people do have to stop and rest. They want to walk. I mean, just like, to catch their breath, or they have to, if they're pregnant, they have to sit for a moment, or
Right.
their heart rate goes up, or, there should be resting spots along the way too. There's no place to sit, I'm sure, the whole way around.
No, there isn't. It's a half a mile loop.
That there should be resting spots.
All
Do they
right.
have curb cuts for white cane users? I mean, it can go on.
I know,
It can go on and on.
right.
So anyways,
All right. Any other updates? I don't have any. Bob Berger. We may have kept you for nothing, because 7A, Grafton Master Plan Disability Commission input, I came unprepared to offer a generic comment that we sort of defer. You know what I mean? They kind of defined for us as one area which affirmatively stated Disability Commission regarding accessibility. But we don't only do the bare minimum. I think we try to go above and beyond. And so there's probably nothing on that master plan that we may not someday find ourselves providing or recommending some accessibility feature, whether it be by minimum standard or going above and beyond. You know, it's like a 150-page document, Bob. The master plan. It's pretty big document, right? So I don't want to box ourselves in, but they're looking for some affirmative input. And I'm saying we sort of affirmatively punt. I don't know, maybe a vote of the commission saying, you know, that we recognize that there could be countless places where accessibility comes into play, and we will play it by ear. I don't know. Maybe that's
Didn't we already talk about some verbiage we wanted to put in there, which just
yeah,
left
but
it totally open-ended?
Yeah, I don't think we voted on it. I don't think we came to a decision of me or someone else emailing or writing a letter to David Robbins. They're out there. They've identified various stakeholders to be the go-to subject matter experts regarding various pieces of the master plan. And there's one or maybe two areas where Disability Commission is mentioned regarding accessibility as a broad statement. But I think that any part of that master plan, accessibility could come in. Catherine, hi. You're raising your
I will
hand.
say that part of that, the whole document, I remember we talked about the grievance process. And I will say that I tried to file a grievance in another town and could not find any contact information for them. So the
Okay.
fact that we have contact information is like a comparability. It was yeah, because somebody had plowed all their snow into the accessible spaces, and I was like, "Can I report this to the town
Mhm.
ADA coordinator, Disability Commission, anything?" And they have a website but no contact information. So the fact that we have contact information
Right.
is like a good thing. Just
Right.
letting everyone know.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is good. And I'm wondering, but as far as planning and changes and upgrades to facilities and things like that, certainly, Bob, yeah, you would run into areas where if something needs to be built, yeah, building code and accessibility needs to be adhered to, but there may be some creative things that could be done that are above and beyond the minimum that we may want to weigh in on. And so we don't want to box ourselves out of areas that we may find ourselves maybe putting forth recommendations where we were not previously identified as a sort of subject matter expert or go-to stakeholder committee. I think they did a great job trying to identify who those various subject matter experts were. But accessibility is only on 2 lines out of 150 pages. So did someone have an idea? Bob, you made an excellent point that it seems like there's a hanging chat that we discussed, and I don't know, gets swallowed up by a black hole. And we're going on 2 hours.
I don't know. Brain dead.
We did come up with something.
I know, and
We did. I think,
Yeah.
Roger, you're going to have to go back to some past meetings and see what we came up with, because I know that we came up with some language that left it totally open-ended and we all liked it.
Okay.
What it is, I have no idea, but I see
Okay.
most of these people are shaking their heads. Yeah, I remember that.
I
know.
don't remember exactly where, but
No, thank you, Bob, for mentioning that, because I remember us having
Wasn't the
a,
last two meetings, I can tell you that.
Right, it was probably the third or the fourth one back.
And I would bet I wasn't there because I don't have any recollection.
Okay.
all right, okay. All right, we'll come up with something. I'll take a look back. Any other old business? I will say that we need to tackle, before people forget that these things are laid down, Norcross and even what's the one on Pleasant Street, Riverview? The matting that was approved by AAB to lay on top of grass has been consumed by it. It has been completely consumed, such that you don't even know that those mats were laid down. So the after picture looks like the before picture. Going to the batting cage and that whole area along the fence line at Norcross and along the fence line after the accessible spaces at Riverview, the field. Those need to all be dug up or something, or maybe sprayed down so that it kills the grass that has grown. I mean, the grass has not only has it grown through the holes, but it's then completely consumed it. So you can't even see that matting, except in very scant places. Has anyone been up there to actually not see what I'm talking about?
Mm-mm.
So, yeah, I'll have to bring, maybe for the next meeting, bring the before and after. The before pictures or whatever. Where the now after pictures look no different from the before picture. So it's inaccessible again. It has a feel of grass underfoot because it is. The mats are basically now underground. It's bizarre how quickly it happened, but anyway. So that's the only other old business I have regarding Norcross and Riverview mats, and to a lesser extent Silver Lake. There's been a lot of sand washout, so that those mats are all warped. The sand needs to be graded underneath, and those need to be relayed. So Norcross, Riverview, and Silver Lake rubber matting. All right. All right. New business. I don't have any. Next meeting Thursday, April 21.
I definitely will not be in town for that.
Okay.
Gotta go to the sun when you can.
Okay. All right. So, Christy, so I just want Christy you've noted that Bob Berger recused himself on 6A. Okay.
and then we join the meeting.
Yeah, and then rejoined. Yep. All right. Thank you, Bob, for doing that. Yeah, you don't want to step in mud. You know, that was a wise move. So.
Yeah, I got to be careful there.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. All right. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Daryl made the motion. Bob second, by roll call. Daryl Reining,
Aye.
Christy Proctor,
Aye.
Bob Berger,
Bob Berger, aye.
Catherine Dorr,
Aye.
Rob Paulsonelli. And Trahan, I declare the motion carried 6-0. This meeting is adjourned at 8:33 p.m.